Good morning and welcome to your one and only source for 205 Live and NXT News. We want to be your go-to source, and I am your host, Greg the Hold, joined as always in the Southern Command Post by my good friend and co-host, Biff Kensington. How are you doing today, Biff?
The Southern Command Center is doing just fine. Grounds for Development HQ reporting in as ordered, sir. It's a beautiful morning. It's a balmy 952 degrees here in North Carolina. I can't wait for this fall invention to kick in. I hear it's supposed to be magical.
Yeah, we've been starting off with the nice little minus temperatures in the morning before that warms up into the pluses. So yeah, you just keep that warm weather to yourself down there.
Wait a minute now. Are we talking plus minus Celsius or plus minus Fahrenheit?
Oh, minus Celsius.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
have Fahrenheit stuff up here.
I was gonna say if we're like talking minus temperatures Fahrenheit, we have a severe problem. We have a bit of a temperature inversion going on, but no, that would make sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess the fall comes earlier for y'all than it does down here for us. So
At least the trees in the river valley are pretty. That's all I could say about fall right now.
well, hey, there ain't nothing wrong with looking at the leaves. When you get older, there's just something that takes over. It's like an old person gene. You kick in about 30 to 35, you start noticing the leaves change colors, and it mesmerizes you. It's just kind of a sign of the times, lets you know that you're getting old and creaky, and the simple things give you pleasure in life.
It
This
sure
is
seems that way.
this is the most morbid start to a show we've had yet.
Well,
Wow.
then maybe we should head into the 205 Live and bring this up a little bit.
Maybe, yeah, maybe we should. 205 Live, of course, coming at you Wednesday night instead of Tuesdays, which helps us because it's all in one night to cover, and we're able to get that content out at you. 205 Live, apparently, just a brief note here before we get into last night's show. 205 Live apparently has been doing much better on Wednesday night than it has been on Tuesday night. It's still being taped at SmackDown, although at this point I would assume that's being taped before SmackDown goes on the air versus after. And that might actually explain why the crowds have been better the last couple of weeks as well. But it is important to note that ratings appear to be going up. So do you think we're going to see this show stay on Wednesdays permanently, or do you think they're going to try and switch it back after the Mixed Match Challenge goes off the air?
You know what? I kind of hope they keep it on Wednesday. I'm really enjoying this little Wednesday really good wrestling block that they have going here. And I mean, the crowd tonight, as you're going to see as we go through here, was on fire and really, really, really helped the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with being able to tape before SmackDown, not having to go live on the network after, yeah, it's a confusing thing with the name, but the crowds are more energetic. Like you've been to live shows before, you've been to TV shows, and once you get past that 2 hour mark, even on the best show you've ever seen, you start to get a little worn out, a little tired. And so I think to get the crowds at the start of a taping is a lot better in terms of aesthetics for 205 Live. But we'll just have to see what ends up happening. I agree with you completely, though. That wrestling block on Wednesday nights right now, it's basically 3 hours of bliss between the Mae Young Classic, NXT, and 205 Live. You've got like three distinct programs, each with their own amazing presentation.
Yeah, it's definitely my go-to day for wrestling in the week. Can sometimes miss SmackDown, most times miss Raw, but Wednesday night is appointment viewing right now.
It's definitely appointment viewing, and it's also what I would like to call a nice apology for what we have to sit through on Monday nights. Although I have heard it's been getting a little better. Um, Kevin Owens and Elias declared war on Seattle, apparently. Uh, Poor Detlef Schrempf going to be launching some sort of invasion of Raw now. So
That was an amazing promo. If you haven't seen it, definitely check that out. I mean, yes, it was just cheap heat, but wow, did that hit home and hit hard. It was a great segment.
I feel Seattle basketball fans' pain. We lost our basketball team years ago. We got another team back. Seattle never got another team, but just speaking from personal experience, it is a painful wound. So Elias and Kevin Owens going for that low-hanging fruit on Monday night. Nothing low-hanging about tonight, though. It's all high class. And speaking of high class, of course, we'd be remiss in not mentioning the most high-class individual on 205 Live to start out the show this week, Drake Maverick, hyping up the big title defense of Cedric Alexander coming at you this Saturday morning. We're just a few days out now from Super Showdown in Australia. One of the most interesting matches on that card comes from 205 Live. Cedric Alexander defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy, the hometown boy from Melbourne, will be challenging for the title. Cedric and Buddy did have a title match earlier this year, which Cedric Alexander successfully defended his title. But this will be on Buddy Murphy's home turf in his hometown of Melbourne, Australia, for the big show Saturday morning. Now, I will be watching that show. I am not going to be watching it from Melbourne, but we'll definitely keep you up to date on the results of that next week here on Grounds for Development. Greg, what did you think of this promo to start off? Do you like Drake starting off the show and kind of giving you a little rundown of everything coming? Because to me, it kind of resembles almost how WCW used to start their shows in the early 90s when they would have the host of the show and then a commentary team that they would throw to. They would just kind of give you running updates. It's kind of what it reminded me of here.
Yeah, and I've been noticing it the last little while that they usually start the show with this, and I really do like it because life comes in at you, and you sometimes miss episodes. Things happen, and it's just nice that if you did miss something, they throw this right at the start. You're brought up to date. You know exactly what's happening, and you can fall right back into the flow and get right into the show and enjoy it. So I think it's a great thing, and I actually really do enjoy it.
Have you been a fan of the way they've been building up the title match between Alexander and Murphy? Because it really has taken on almost the aura of a sporting event. If you've ever seen, I don't know if you're a fan of MMA or boxing, but how they focus on the training, they focus on the mentality of the performers. It's not so much a wrestling storyline right now as it is almost a professional fight, like a professional title fight in boxing. I mean, is that striking your fancy? Because to me, it's something a bit different, but it's also something that 205 Live seems to do really well.
I really like it. And in fact, like for the Super Showdown, this is the match that has like the most stakes, in my opinion. It's the match that's been the best build. It feels like more important than anything else going on. Does anybody even really know why Kevin Owens and Bobby Lashley and John Cena and whoever Elias are fighting? There's been hardly any build towards that. Whereas this build's been going on for the last 3-4 weeks now, I guess. And yeah, you're right. It feels important. It feels like it's the most important match on the card, to be honest.
It's up there for me. The only match that would probably be close to this would probably be the Charlotte and Becky Lynch match. But that's more of the traditional wrestling angle, whereas this is more of it's almost, a celebration of the actual 205 Live roster in a sense, the 205 Live style, or the Cruiserweight style, as it were. So, I like the way that they set these shows up. I do like the way that they kind of keep you in the loop. I have to ask you one other question as far as Drake Maverick goes. Does the fact that Drake is on Raw with the Authors of Pain, does that bother you any when he comes back to 205 Live as the commissioner? I mean, does it feel almost like he's two different characters in continuity, or does it not really bother you because 205 Live is almost self-contained these days?
I thought it was going to bother me more than it actually does. I think it's just, the presentation. It's different enough that you buy Drake as the GM here because it's a almost self-contained little universe. Whereas, he's kind of just doing what he's doing over there on Raw. And I really did initially think it was going to bother me more than it really does. And as of right now, I'm kind of indifferent towards it. It's not bothering me too much at all.
Well, he's definitely done a great job, a really great job as the leader of 205 Live since he came on board earlier this year. Um, and I'm glad that he's getting a chance to work on Raw as well, because I know we've talked in the past. Managers are sorely missed in wrestling. We're both longtime old school fans, so we both know how awesome it would be to have managers and valets start kind of making a comeback. But as long as his performance isn't really suffering on Wednesday nights, I think it's good on him. Good on him for getting an even bigger platform to work from. As long as it doesn't affect the work that he's doing on 205 Live, because I would hate to lose his performance. He's one of the best leadership figures in the WWE right now, in my opinion.
Agreed, totally. He's killing it, and he keeps killing it. So once again, like you just said, I'm glad to see him on a bigger platform. More people get to know him. Maybe more people end up checking out 205 Live just because they're wondering who this guy is. And that could only be a good thing. So good on him. I hope everything stays the way it's going and he keeps doing the job that he's doing.
The opening match for this week's show, actually one of the premiere matches of the week. It's actually one of the matches that was kind of promoted for this week's episode. Akira Tozawa and Jack Gallagher. We are both huge Jack Gallagher fans. I know I'm a big Tozawa fan. I think you are as well. They open us up this week. This match, the standard good affair between these two, but there's also a pretty big angle coming out of this match to talk about a little bit. First of all, let's start with the actual match itself before we get into the post-match antics. What did you think of this particular match? Did you like the way they matched up? Did you approve of Tozawa picking up the win over Gallagher here?
I was actually a little surprised that Gallagher picked up, or the Tozawa picked up the win, but being what happened afterwards, you kind of see why it happened, and we'll get into that in a minute here. But the match was an excellent match. It was good stuff. Gallagher makes just the little things so well, like just the little facial expressions, like at the start when Tozawa roars at him and he just kind of backs away and has his little oh my. He just does those little things so well, and it just adds to every match that he's in. You saw Kendrick and Gulak kind of get involved and not get tossed from ringside, and we'll have once again a little more on that kind of situation a little later. They did some really cool things in here. They had like a very neat little unique submission exchange there where Tozawa did whatever that hanging off a Gallagher thing that he was doing was. And then it moved into the modified single leg crab by Gentleman Jack. And the crowd was really, really giving the heat to Jack Gallagher there. So they were very into the match, and it really added to the atmosphere. So I thought it was an excellent match overall.
And you brought up a good point. A very special kudos to the Portland crowd. They were in Portland this week for SmackDown. That's why they were in Portland for 205 Live as well. The crowd was up for this match. They appreciated what they were seeing, and that's a big step up in terms of the aesthetic of the show. I mean, we've both been watching 205 Live for a while now. There's been some amazing matches played in front of very quiet crowds, and so kudos to Portland. They were into it. They were giving this match the attention that it deserved. Big win for Akira Tozawa. I'm with you. I wasn't exactly expecting this, but given what we had happen after the match, it kind of makes a little more sense. And that is, of course, the post-match kerfluffle, we'll call it, with Drew Gulak and his partners. One of the big stables of 205 Live, apparently no more. And it came as a result of the return of Drew Gulak's PowerPoint presentation. Now, I'm not going to say one way or the other whether I'm a fan of the PowerPoint presentations or not, mostly because I'm having some trouble with my PowerPoint programming right now, and I don't want to relive that trauma. But the important thing to note is, of course, that we have a turn here. the Brian Kendrick is basically no more with Jack Gallagher and Drew Gulak. First of all, let's just lay all the cards out on the table. Did you see this coming? I certainly didn't. And what did you think of it? Do you think it's the right time to break this little faction up?
You know what? I'm with you on that. I had no foresight of this coming down the pipes. It shocked me when it happened. As the PowerPoint presentation went on, you kind of saw it building towards that, and then I was just, whoa, where's this coming from? But with Drew out of the title scene for the foreseeable future, they needed to do something with him. Turning on a stablemate and having the Brian Kendrick face off against Drew Gulak and Jack Gallagher for a little bit gives them some direction to go in. And you know what? I think it should be a pretty fun matchup.
Do you think that we're going to see anybody replace Kendrick's spot, or do you think Gulak and Gallagher are going to run as a tandem for a little while?
I think they might just run as a tandem for a bit here. I don't really see anybody else out there right now that would really fit into the group. And to be quite honest, I always kind of thought that the Brian Kendrick was a little bit of the outsider in that group anyways, just looks wise and everything else. He just didn't quite fit with the rest of the aesthetic in my opinion. So, you know what? I don't mind this breakup. I'm kind of curious to see where it goes.
One thing it does is it provides a nice mid-card angle for the brand, which they need more of. We talked last week about how 205 Live has done a really good job of establishing stories up and down the card. And we're about to get into another story here momentarily, kind of a review of the Hideo Itami Mustafa Ali situation from last week's episode. And we know that those two are definitely going to be facing off against each other. But it's interesting. It's definitely out of left field, I think, but it's the kind of out of left field that you're willing to stomach. It's tolerable. It's one of those surprises where, no, I didn't see it coming, but I'm interested to see where it goes. There's a big difference between this kind of setup and what wound up happening, let's say, back in 2014 with the Shield, when the Shield broke up out of nowhere and it just left you shell-shocked. And you're kind of unsure of where they're going. Well, we're unsure of where they're going here. But, the stable had kind of run its course a little bit. We've seen Gulak have his shots at the title. It was pretty clear that they weren't going to be sticking around in the main event program any longer. That role seems to be reserved now for Buddy Murphy, which was the next little bit on this show. We had some of the aforementioned training clips for Cedric and Murphy getting ready for the match on Saturday in Melbourne. You know what? We should probably throw this in here. This is a little bit of a news note. The word coming out of the dirt sheets all week has been not to expect any title changes at Super Showdown, but it is interesting to note, I'm not sure if you caught this, Greg, earlier today, some of the first odds have been released for the matches coming up at Super Showdown, and Buddy Murphy is right now the favorite over Cedric Alexander. He's a solid favorite in their match. Now, the smart money has yet to come in. Generally, the odds will either tighten up or expand depending on who's favorite to win as we get closer to a show. So don't take that as a spoiler. It doesn't mean Buddy Murphy is guaranteed to win. And even if he does pick up the decision, it doesn't mean he'll necessarily win the title. He could win by DQ or countout. But does it surprise you that Buddy Murphy is currently the favorite, given all the talk about no titles expected to be changing hands?
You know what? I do find that a touch surprising. But as far as that goes, that those rumors, how much can you really put stock into them? And honestly, if there is one title that's going to change hands, this is the one that I would most likely predict would be the one to do it. So I can sort of see where those odds are coming, but like you said, the smart money's not in yet. I imagine we're going to see those odds tighten up significantly. So who knows? But this is the one that I could see actually them pulling the trigger on for sure.
I think we're definitely going to have to give our final predictions on this title match at the end of the show because we are getting so close to it now. And again, just can't say enough about how they've been building up this championship match, making it feel like such a big deal. That's exactly what they should be doing. Every level of the card, every championship in the company should feel like the Cruiserweight Championship does right now. And I know people look at the Cruiserweight Championship as being both the newest kid on the block, 90s music reference for all you old farts out there, and forever Donnie fan. He was great in Band of Brothers. What can I say? No, but the Cruiserweight title is the newest title, having such trouble getting established with any level of respectability in its first year in existence. But now they're treating this title with reverence and respect. It's a big deal on the show. I wish that they would take a cue for the rest of their titles and make the Intercontinental title worth this much. Seth Rollins did a great job making it worth more than it had been with his great matches. I just wish they would apply the same standard to all their titles. I wish what they were doing with the Cruiserweight title right now could be replicated, because I am really enjoying the fact that these two guys are taking this match so seriously. The title means something. And that's not really the case for a lot of the titles in the company right now.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head with that. Really, the Cruiserweight Championship and the SmackDown's Women's Championship are the only two titles right now for the Super Show that feel like they have any importance to them at all. And right now, this match has the strong potential to be the match of the night or match of the morning for Super Showdown.
I hope I don't think they're going to close with this, not with The Undertaker and Triple H wrestling. I hope this is the semi-main. I really do. I hope that if they don't open the show, I hope that it's the semi-main event, because I bet you dollars to donuts the crowd is going to be molten for Buddy Murphy. And I mean, we're talking a huge crowd, so it's going to have, an aesthetic to this match that we haven't probably seen since WrestleMania in New Orleans with the Cruiserweight Tournament final between Ali and Cedric Alexander. It's going to be a great match. I'm so looking forward to it. And, of course, we'll have full coverage next week for you of the match. We'll give you all the highlights, the rundown, and what it means for 205 Live moving forward. We got you covered, folks. You're in good hands here.
You bet.
Speaking of Ali, we did mention this earlier, touch on it here briefly again. The Hideo Itami Mustafa Ali feud, one of the best feuds going into 205 Live, is not over with by any measure. We do know that they will be facing off again. Both men got the week off this week, but Maverick did confirm they will be going at it again. So that feud is still well on its way. We also have a Leo Rush sighting. He'll be holding an open challenge for next week's episode, so that'll be interesting to see. Leo has really been establishing himself across both 205 Live and Raw here lately. He's kind of followed the Drake Maverick principle. He's got his own little side business going on the Raw brand right now. And, of course, he's established his credentials on 205 Live. Of course, he's had a little to do with Noam Dar here recently. He'll be holding an open challenge next week, so we'll be looking forward to that. But, of course, we need to get to the big match of the night, and this is one that I know that you have a lot to say about, especially with respect to one of the performers who we're going to be honoring in the Power 5 rankings coming up a little bit later, Kalisto and TJP going at it in today's feature match, last night's feature match, I should say. Lucha House Party's Kalisto, say what you will about him. He's a great performer. Pretty underrated overall in his time in the business here in WWE. But TJP, you talk about someone that's found another gear in the last couple of weeks. He has really started to establish himself not only as a credible heel, but as a credible star on this brand. I cannot, say enough good things about TJP. The result didn't go the way he wanted it to last night necessarily, but in terms of his star presence, the quality of his matches, he has really turned it up another level, and he's kind of recaptured a lot of that Cruiserweight Classic form that propelled him to the inaugural title. What did you think of the match, and where do you think TJP and Kalisto need to go from here? This was a really fun little deal.
This is a great little deal, and I've really, really been enjoying TJP the last couple of weeks. Just the whole disrespect for lucha libre and all that. It's such a beautiful heel move. And I don't know if you caught the Lucha House Party shirts with the throwback design to the old In Your House pay-per-views. So that was just a neat little nod to WWE history there. But him coming in wearing one of the shirts and ripping it off during his entrance, beautiful little heel tactics there. Just, you know, cheap heat, but it's effective heat. And then this match was really, really good. They had that really fun opening exchange with all the flips and counters while still locking arms and everything. Very, very fun watching that. TJP had that beautiful counter off of the second rope to the Mexico City Twister into the slam onto the ground. That was really, really nice move. Kalisto with the beautiful little victory bomb off the top rope in the corner. There was some really, really good wrestling, really flashy moves in this match. And then showing the disrespect for the Lucha Libre again by going for Kalisto's mask, and Lindsay comes out, and Kalisto wins off the distraction. So, you know, it didn't go TJP's way, but then after the match, he goes right back and rips Kalisto's match off. It was a great match, once again, heightened by the crowd being really, really into it. So kudos to you, Portland. You did a great job tonight, pumping 205 Live up.
And that's the last time we're going to give credit to Portland because starting very shortly, they are our mortal enemies in basketball, as our other basketball city. Charlotte Hornets representing the unofficial official NBA team of Grounds for Development. I don't know if Greg has his own favorite team or not. It's irrelevant. Southern Command roots for the Charlotte Hornets. So,
there you go.
In all seriousness, Portland, kudos to you. Really did a good job. You know what? This main event's just another crackerjack match in a running series of them for 205 Live. You know, we sound like broken records almost at this point. But you're going to get a good match. At least one really good match a week. Sometimes you'll get two really good ones. Sometimes, you know, the storylines on NXT may not always be where you want them to be, or you might have a really solid match just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like in NXT, you have shows that are more storyline driven, and then sometimes you have the shows that are more in-ring driven. 205 Live seems to be finding its groove right down the middle, where you get some storyline advancement every week on at least one of the big stories, but you also get one or two really great matches just to kind of give you something to keep tuning back in for. This week, you know, with TJP and Kalisto, of course, bringing the goods. We know the kind of athletes that both men are. We have a lot of interesting stories really starting to take shape here from the top down. Of course, we have to again talk about the title match coming up on Saturday, Buddy Murphy and Cedric Alexander. There's no indication that feud will end in Australia. We're probably looking at those two at least having one more match after Super Showdown. I would imagine, especially if Buddy Murphy does win the title, Cedric will get his rematch. But we could be looking at a feud brewing between them, but we definitely have feuds with Mustafa Ali and Hideo Itami. That's been going on now for several weeks. That's been one of the better upper card feuds for this brand. We have TJP in his little war with Lucha House Party, stealing masks and just being a complete disrespectful little snothead. Running out in the crowd with a mask tonight after the match, even though he picked up the loss last night. You know, it's just a running gag at this point. TJP just having all sorts of trouble with the luchadors here on 205 Live. Of course, we also have the new turn tonight with Jack Gallagher and Drew Gulak now at odds with their former stablemate, the Brian Kendricks. There's another story that's kind of developing. We had Leo Rush, who's trying to establish his brand, so to speak, here on 205 Live, and he had the little to do with Noam Dar recently. Noam Dar is another star that's going to be working his way into some programs here as he continues his recovery from the knee injury. There's just so much going on in the show right now. It's almost a shame that we only get 45 minutes a week to talk about 205 Live with as many stories as they have. you could almost see them maybe expanding the show out to a full hour just to get a little bit more coverage. They've got 4 or 5 different storylines going right now, and it's really impressive to see where they've come as a brand just in the last 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they ever do expand, I'll be a number one fan, rooting them the whole way. Like the way they're telling all the stories with every little feud here reminds me of like the best parts of the Attitude Era. Like, yes, you can say what you want about the Attitude Era. There's good stuff. There was some bad stuff, but every feud, mid card, lower card, upper card back then had a story attached to it, whether it was a strong story or not. But everything had a story, had a reason for happening. That's what's going on with 205 Live right now. Like you just mentioned, every feud has some gravitas towards it, whether it's TJP being like you said, a little snot and taking everybody's masks, Gulak's gang breaking up, Ali, Tommy, Leo Rush, Noam Dar, like everything's got a little storyline and everything's working its way towards some kind of conclusion that keeps you interested, keeps you wanting to come back and see where things are going. It's great storytelling. I hope it continues. They're doing a killer job down there.
Now here comes the $1 million question, and this is purely dependent on a level of fan booking that I don't think even 205 Live is capable of fulfilling. But I'm going to throw this out there all the same. We talked a little bit about the Brian Kendrick, Gulak / Gallagher situation and your belief that both Gallagher and Gulak were made a tag team. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, so please, if you're listening, do not take this as a spoiler. This has not been rumored by any dirt sheets. It's not been talked about at all. This is purely Biff Kensington's own personal speculation. Okay? With the turn tonight, well, last night I should say, I gotta get in the habit of going to bed before I do these shows. See, I stay up all night, and I'm like, it's still night for me, even though the sun is peeking out of the curtains. Brian Kendrick needs a tag team partner to take on Gulak and Gallagher. He's got a friend working SmackDown that's not too awful far over the 205-pound weight limit of 205 Live. If they want to infuse a little bit of star power for this feud, what would you say about Daniel Bryan making a cameo appearance as the Brian Kendrick's tag team partner? It's obvious that Kendrick is set up to be the babyface, I think, in this feud. The way it was orchestrated last night, Gulak and Gallagher definitely seem to be the feuds coming forward. Gallagher and Gulak are definitely not fan favorites right now. Kendrick definitely had the sympathy put on him. What would you say if Daniel Bryan came to his old friend's aid? We know from the Cruiserweight Classic there is a tremendous friendship there and level of respect that both men share for one another. Do you think that could work, or is Biff just setting his sights too high here?
I think that Biff may be setting his sights too high, but oh my God, would I love to see that happen. And man, would that ever be a coup for 205 Live. And you want to bring eyeballs to the product? There you go. That's going to do it. Wow, that would, yeah, that's fantasy booking extraordinaire, but I love it, Biff.
Well, he's billed at 210, so I'm sure he could find a way to lose 5 pounds eventually.
Yeah, he could just shave the beard.
There you go. That's at least 3 pounds right there. But that brings up a serious point, and this is something that I think bears a deeper conversation on, because with 205 Live, they are very insular in how everything that happens on 205 Live largely stays on 205 Live right now. But we have seen some crossover start. We had Drake Maverick and Leo Rush most notably kind of getting back into the picture on Raw. And we're about to talk about NXT, and we had a little 205 Live sighting down on NXT on on last night's show. And so, we're talking about a show that doesn't have to remain quite so insular. Maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to bring up some, big name superstars to appear every once in a while on 205 Live, especially from the SmackDown brand since they're touring together. What is stopping them if Rey Mysterio is in fact going to be signing full time with the WWE? Why couldn't Rey Mysterio make a guest appearance on 205 Live? Why couldn't Daniel Bryan, especially in a scenario like this where he's coming to his friend's aid? There's just all sorts of different little ways that they could integrate some crossover from their two main shows into 205 Live, just as they're integrating some of 205 Live down into NXT. We talked before we went on the air about NXT sending people up for the Cruiserweight title tournament earlier this year. Buddy Murphy, that's how he gained his promotion to the main roster, was through the title tournament. Roddy Strong had a brief run in the tournament as well. And although he's gone back to NXT in the interim, still, we've got some crossover appeal here. So do you like that idea, or do you more prefer 205 Live to remain kind of insular and isolated so that they're kind of telling their own stories, not being so dependent on the main roster performers?
I would like to see them hit a happy medium. I do like the fact that they're telling their own stories. They're having their own little feuds that are independent of anything that's going on any other show. But at the same token, all you're going to do is enhance an already great product by bringing bigger and more well-known names. You're going to give your talent that's in 205 Live a chance to work with guys that are on arguably a different level than they are. It's not going to do anything bad for your roster. It's only going to improve the guys that are in 205 Live. It also, like I said, people that are fans of a Daniel Bryan, of a Rey Mysterio, are going to bring their eyes to where these guys go. And you may win yourself some new fans. These guys come and watch 205 Live and be like, hey, I didn't realize this was here. This is excellent. I'm going to check this out more. In my opinion, it's not a bad thing. There's no drawbacks to doing it. Just as long as you do keep the balance of keeping your 205 guys with their storylines and just integrating it as you need to. And it goes both ways. You can bring guys from 205 Live up into the main roster stuff as they're doing on Raw with Leo Rush and Drake Maverick. And there's no reason why we can't see like a Buddy Murphy up on SmackDown taking on whomever. He's got the skills to hang with anybody that's up there. And once again, it's only going to benefit all your shows, in my opinion.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. There's all sorts of different ways they could do things. They're not stuck on any one direct path that they have to do. There's always room for experimentation. They can vary things up if they want to. But that's part of what makes the show so much fun right now. We really feel like we're living through an era of programming, an era of wrestling, honestly, where it feels like anything could happen. It's been just such a bizarre year across the board. No, we're not just talking WWE here. We're talking just in wrestling in general. With all that's happened, it just feels like the sky's the limit right now. So we'll see what happens. We have some news about the WWE Network that we're going to be bringing up towards the end of the show this morning. And it could have an impact, especially on NXT, but 205 Live as well, possibly, that we'll cover. But before we move on to NXT, final thoughts on last night's episode of 205 Live. What kind of grade are you giving it?
You know what? I thought it was an overall really good show. The TJP Kalisto match was excellent. Your first match was a solid match. I'm going to give a good solid A to this show. You're going to enjoy yourself checking this one out. It's good wrestling, good heel tactics on both matches, an unexpected turn, some good storytelling, an overall strong episode.
Well, we go, of course, from 205 Live to the other show we like to cover here on Grounds for Development. We'll be talking about NXT here momentarily, but first, we're going to throw out a few plugs, as we always do. Around this time, of course, we'd like to send a special shout-out to our friends, Crazy Chris Colgan and Curtain Jerker George Atsaves. at You Guys One Sports. They have been very helpful and very kind to us here at the show in our first few weeks. Definitely want to check them out later this evening, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. The big draft that they've been preparing for over the last couple of weeks is tonight. And yours truly will be on the show. He'll be drafting. I'm not going to give anything away right now. I am not at liberty to discuss some of the things that will be happening tonight, but I guarantee you want to check Two Guys One Sport out later tonight. That's 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. They drop shows every Thursday night, just like we drop every Thursday morning. So definitely give them some love. They've been so very kind to us and plugging our show and retweeting our stuff over on Twitter. So definitely check that out tonight. Also, want to give some love to Taker's Minion and Mr. Doc Senju from the Shooting Debris podcast. They drop every Saturday morning, 11 p.m. Eastern in the morning on YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern on the weekends of the Big Four shows. Of course, Greg and I both have been guest stars on that show in the past, and yes, that show is still standing. We have not got them kicked off YouTube yet. We're working on it. We're working on it every time we get on there. But Taker's Minion and Doc are just awesome, wonderful people. And definitely extend your condolences to Taker's Minion, whose Cubs are eliminated from postseason contention, as are Angels A's, apparently. This gets my attention as a Boston Red Sox fan. It's going to be the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox in the divisional series. So fun times ahead for yours truly.
Oh, good series. Those are always good series, even when the Red Sox sometimes don't come out ahead on those ones.
I knew I loved you for a reason. Good man. Good man, Greg the Hold. Let's try to remember if we had any other plugs to throw out there. Yes, indeed, we have one more, of course. Our sister show on Monday evenings, The Connoisseurs of Wrestling. Talked about the Road Warriors this past Monday for our Hall of Fame induction show. Be sure to join Taker's Minion, Legends Lover, George Oxagas, and myself. That's 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Monday evenings. It gives you a little bit of a break from Raw if Raw gets too much for you. You can check out our live thread over there, join the chat, and just revel in the stories. Poor George, his Cubs also lost last night, so he's also going to be in a sour mood right now, so extend some thoughts his way. But those are the kind of the family of shows that we've got cooking up here. All of us are working together to help each other show out, and they've all been so kind to us. I just want to say a special thank you to the fans who've been listening to our show. And yes, we call you fans. We call you the best people on the internet. Everyone that's continued to check out our show from week to week. You've made our first month just a roaring success. We cannot thank you enough. We love you. We appreciate you, each and every one of you that have subscribed. Be sure to give us a like if you like what you hear, and pound that subscribe button. Okay, Greg, we're into NXT now, and I know that we have some big matches from last night's show that you want to talk about, but can we start first and foremost with the goddess of NXT, Nikki Cross, starting things off? I mean, how awesome is Nikki Cross right now? She mesmerizes you every time she's on screen. She's like the female version of William Regal. You just have to pay attention anytime she's there, no matter what she's talking about. I'm going to let you gush over her while I collect my thoughts on this one.
Nikki Cross is an absolute nut in the best sense of the word. I love it. It's so different than anything else that's out there, and she is just so amazingly great at it. And it's like, you're right, you just can't help but be like, what the hell am I watching, and why am I so entertained by this? She's incredible. I think her not being there is a huge part of why Sanity is just kind of floundering on the main roster. But I'm loving seeing Nikki thrive on her own. Like, this was a great way to start the show. She's incredible, and I want to know what she knows, or if she knows anything. It's great. I love it.
Well, we spoke last week about how the main storyline of NXT, the Aleister Black investigation, William Regal, has been conducting has spun off so many side stories. And Nikki Cross, of course, we've got two stories here, uh, kind of intertwining the Bianca Belair feud and the Aleister Black incident, which is coming to a head relatively quickly. But if we're just looking at Nikki Cross specifically, she's definitely had what I might consider to be almost a breakout year in 2018. She had a great series of matches with Asuka while Asuka was still with the NXT brand, but I really feel like since she's gotten away from Sanity, she's actually kind of developed. I wouldn't say more personality. She's always had this kind of unhinged personality about her since she's been with NXT, but she's definitely gotten a chance to shine a little bit more. And that really brings up the interesting question with rumors of Nikki Cross's promotion to the main roster continuing to swirl. Where do you think she should go? Should she reunite with Sanity on the main roster and try and reignite their floundering run as a tag team, or should she stay independent and become a big star in the women's division?
Honestly, I would like to see her stay independent, to be quite honest. I don't know that right at the moment there's much that can save Sanity on the main roster. Even when they were in NXT, I was never honestly all that big on Sanity. I think Killian Dane has a big future because, when you're that size and you can move as well as a guy that size does, you're going to go somewhere. Eric Young he's serviceable. He's good at what he does, but he's been playing basically the same character over the last 5 years. There really hasn't been anything. You see what you're going to get. You're not going to get anything more than what you see with Eric Young. And Alexander Wolf has just kind of always been the other guy for me. So, you know what? I don't know that putting Nikki back with Sanity is going to save them, or more potentially just bring Nikki down. And I don't want to see Nikki be brought down. Set her on her own. Let her fly that nut flag and become the star that she is.
I don't know what it is about the idea of a nut flag, but it just sounds so funny. I feel like I'm going to get in trouble if I ponder on that one too much more. So I'm going to skip ahead here. This is an interesting match that I want to talk about. This is actually becoming, I wouldn't say it's a controversy yet, but there's definitely been a recurrence of conversation about the Lacey Evans character that we want to bring up here tonight. And this is as good a point as any. Our opening match from last night's episode of NXT, Lacey Evans taking on Candice LeRae. On paper, of course, this should be a good chance for Lacey Evans to shine. Candice LeRae, a very good worker. The controversy or this is a tough one. It's not necessarily a controversy so much as it is concern over the Lacey Evans character and some of the things that she says, both in her promos and on social media, has really started to create almost a lightning rod around her down in NXT, where people are questioning, whether this is good healing that she's doing or whether this gimmick could be rubbing people the wrong way. Maybe it's not exactly kosher for the main roster. And so we kind of get, double opinions here. Of course, Lacey Evans, she does pick up the win on Candice LeRae with the women's right. Pretty good match, pretty competitive match. Not a long match by any stretch of the imagination. I would have liked to have maybe seen this go a little bit longer myself personally. But let's break this down. First of all, what did you think of the match? And two, what is your opinion on Lacey Evans as a character right now? Is she rubbing you the wrong way with some of this stuff that she's saying? Or do you think it's just her being a good heel?
To the match, first of all, I thought it was a good match. It was a good, solid match. Seeing Evans tower over LeRae there kind of made me realize, like, wow, LeRae's both really small, and Evans she's a big statuesque woman. The match was good. There's some really nice little heel touches in the match, just aside from all the rest of it that's going on with the character. like the push-ups after the head scissor takedown, the little hair pull when in the rest hold, hiding it from the ref, the pathetic wife comments. So that that stuff in match was a great heel stuff, and I quite enjoyed it. Um, the comment, what did she say? Where it causes Lorraine to lose it. When she said that you're a loser just like your husband, and led right into. I mean, like, you can't tell me that isn't like classic heel stuff. Set Lorraine off the deep end, and basically led to her charging in and taking the women's right. So the match was, it was a great opening match. It was a good solid match. I kind of agree with you. I kind of would have liked to have seen a little bit more time given to it, but it was good for what it was. And now, as to the character of Lacey Evans overall, it's such a tightrope to walk. I kind of, right at the moment, am leaning towards it's just good healing, but it's right on the edge there, and I can see why people are getting a little offended by what she says and what she does. And I think they're going to have to tread carefully going forward with this. Otherwise we're going to, maybe see a little bit of backlash being thrown Evans' way.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing that we want to stress here above all else. The number one concern is Lacey Evans, the performer. We don't want anything to befall her, either within the company or on social media, because of the gimmick she portrays. But definitely, she's got a little bit more leeway than if a male character was saying some of these things. If it was a male character, we're just we're straight off the cliff at that point.
Oh yeah,
Full on sexism. So Lacey, because she is a woman, I guess they feel that she has more latitude to kind of push the envelope a little bit here. But you're right; they need to be very careful with how they present her as a character, and more than anything, it's just we don't want to completely neuter their ability to tell stories. We don't want to just dive straight headlong into the vat of political correctness necessarily and just stymie everything. But at the same time, we do need to recognize the WWE. They do have some skeletons in their closet with regards to some of their behavior in the past, how they've treated female performers, and those skeletons, they may not be representative of how business is conducted these days necessarily, but they are skeletons there nonetheless. They're a painful reminder that this company has not always had the best track record when it comes to treating female performers as equals. And I think more than anything, what we're seeing out of the women's division on SmackDown right now, out of the Mae Young Classic right now, and out of the women's division here in NXT, female performers in this company are no longer, special attractions. They are just as much a part of the superstar core of talent as the men are in a lot of respects. When you're talking about the big stars on Monday Night Raw, you don't go very far down the list before you hit Ronda Rousey. And we were talking about this during our 205 Live coverage. When you're looking at SmackDown right now, you could very easily argue that the main storyline on that brand is Becky Lynch and Charlotte. It's the storyline that keeps closing out the shows, and it's definitely the storyline that's got the most interest and the most attention being put on it right now. So, we're in an era, and more power to them as a result, where women's wrestling is really being treated as on par with their male counterparts. When you get a character like Lacey Evans to come in, and I apologize for jumping on the soapbox here, I didn't mean to start a rant. When you get a character like Lacey Evans, when you're kind of pushing the envelope, you're kind of pushing the boundary, when you're telling women to, get back in the kitchen, as she's been prone to do on social media, on the one hand, yeah, it's tantalizing, it's provocative, it's definitely a heelish comment, and it's designed to put heat on Lacey Evans as a character. But, you have to be sensitive about, how you word certain things and how far you push the boundary, you don't want to push it too far because then Lacey Evans has a backlash against her, and it's through no fault of her own. She's just doing what she's told to go out and do. Um, but I'm with you in the sense right now. I think it's just good healing. The fact that she is clearly positioned as the heel, I think, kind of helps a lot because if she was in that nebulous gray area that Becky Lynch is right now, I think the boundary would be even closer than it is. As a heel, you have a little bit more latitude because people expect heels to say dastardly things. But we will be interested to see where she goes from here. Like I said, there's not been like a huge controversy over the character thus far, but there is conversation taking place. I've seen it kind of grow more as she's become more active on social media and she's gotten more prominence on NXT. So that's something we're going to have to just kind of keep a check on. Want to look at the other participants in this match right quick. Candice LeRae. Greg, I'd love to get your take on Candice. Now, she's kind of been on the tertiary of the women's division this summer. She's more or less kind of been playing almost a side role in the Johnny Gargano character arc since she's come to NXT. She's not really established herself yet as a breakout star on her own merit. Do you have a problem with her taking the loss here? And do you have a problem with the way they've been treating Candice LeRae and how she's kind of been preoccupied as a character with things outside of her own career?
I don't really have a problem with it. I like the fact that she's been a periphery part of the Gargano Ciampa feud, and in a lot of ways, she's been fairly important. She's been a fairly important part of the storytelling that they've been doing with Johnny Failure trying to redeem himself, and you can see the frustration that's building on his wife through this whole ordeal. I don't really have a problem with her taking the loss in this match because it tied directly into that whole story arc. With Lacey Evans kind of dissing her husband, and you've seen it building up how Candice is very passionate and takes umbrage to somebody calling out her husband, and rightfully so. So I don't have a problem with her taking the loss. I'd like to see her just kind of stand a little bit more on her own as things progress, and I'm willing to give NXT a little leeway with where they're going on this, just because they've built up the goodwill with the fans, and there's probably more to the story that's coming, and I think that we will probably enjoy it. So I'm willing to give them a little leeway, see where they go with the character.
Moving on, then, we got a little bit of a video package for the Forgotten Sons, who were in action last night. They had a match. If I'm not mistaken, this might have been the first time that all three members of the Forgotten Sons were in the ring at the same time. I know we've seen some of the individual performers in action over the last couple of weeks. But also, we need to talk about the video package that Morrow kind of introduces. The North American title scene right now. We talk about the Cruiserweight title and the SmackDown Women's title. We need to give special props to the North American title scene as well here at NXT. Honestly, this is one of the matches I am most looking forward to coming up in the next couple of weeks. The triple threat match, Adam Cole, Pete Dunne, and Ricochet for the North American title. This little intertwining of these three individuals. And, of course, when you talk Adam Cole and Pete Dunne, you have some of their friends kind of lurking on the periphery of this as well. I think we're almost guaranteed at this point that War Games is going to feature some combination of these three guys. It just feels like that's where we're going, whether it's British Strong Style and the Undisputed Era, and then Ricochet teaming with the War Raiders maybe to do a 3-on-3-on-3. Or if there is some sort of partnership between Ricochet and Dunne with his tag partners against the Undisputed Era, if Bobby Fish can make it back. There's different ways they could do it. But just talking about this title match coming up, this triple threat match, the last match we had between Pete Dunne and Ricochet was a television match of the year candidate. And the match between Ricochet and Adam Cole in Brooklyn was fantastic. We're looking ahead at this triple threat. We could be looking at not only a television match of the year, we could be looking at an actual match of the year candidate. And given some of the matches we've seen in NXT this year alone, that is exceedingly high praise. What did you think of this video package? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And on a scale of 10 to 10, how excited are you for this triple threat match coming up?
What can we say about the videos that WWE puts out? They always nail these things. Like, I haven't seen one in a long time that hasn't just been absolutely nailed. And these three in the same ring, like, wow, sign me up. Give it all the time. Give it the whole show as far as I'm concerned. That is going to be a killer match. I agree that I think it's probably going to lead into something that happens at War Games, whatever that may be. I don't know as of yet. I try to stay away from NXT spoilers as much as possible. So I haven't seen anything that spoils that, and I don't want to. So I'm sure that there will be some shenanigans. You can't give that away. That's a takeover quality match. That's a WrestleMania quality match right there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, even with the expected shenanigans that I'm sure are going to happen. It's still going to be one of the best matches we're going to see in a long time, I think. So yeah, they did great, and I'm looking forward to that very, very much.
Speaking of things looking forward to, the NXT champion graces us with his presence this week. Tommaso Ciampa, Tommaso Ciampa just, is it possible for him not to be entertaining right now? Does an interview segment, just kind of letting Velveteen Dream know that he's still thinking about him. And that definitely does seem to be a match that's going to be coming around sooner rather than later. Remains to be seen. We don't do spoilers on this show. Now, they are getting close, I do believe, to their next set of TV tapings down at Full Sail, which should get us through to the War Games pay-per-view. So I'm sure the card will leak out eventually. When we have actual formal notification of these matches, be it through social media or on the programs, we'll definitely be talking about them. But we don't want to give you any impression that we know something that we're not letting on, or we don't want to spoil anything before it should be spoiled. We'll see where this goes. But Tommaso Ciampa and Velveteen Dream, that looks like that's a program that's going to be happening. And it almost makes you wonder if Aleister Black's attacker is going to be someone other than Ciampa, or else will they just interject Aleister Black into any type of Velveteen Dream Tommaso Ciampa title match, especially if this makes it all the way to November War Games. What's your opinion on this promo, first of all? And does it change your mind any on what you think the resolution to the Aleister Black angle is going to be?
To borrow a favorite phrase from you, this promo gave me the vapors. This was...
I'm rubbing off on you, pal.
You know what? Like, Tommaso Ciampa right now, everything he touches is gold. The man can do no wrong in my book at the moment. Every time he opens his mouth, it is amazing. He's been great in the ring. He's the real deal. He is worth the price of admission. Check out everything that he does. You will not be disappointed. And yeah, you know what? I'm liking the fact that they keep throwing new twists and turns. I really, every time I think I might know who Aleister Black's attacker was, they throw something like that out. Now they got me kind of thinking, well, maybe it was Velveteen Dream. And if they want to throw Aleister Black into a match with Tommaso Ciampa and Velveteen Dream, I think that I would be willing to watch that and be quite happy to do so.
Wouldn't require you be having your arm twisted, you're saying, basically.
No, not much at all. That's for sure.
You're willing to make the sacrifice for the show.
I will sit here and faithfully watch it so that we can bring our viewpoints to our faithful listeners. It will be a terrible burden on me, but I do it for you out of love.
If we could reach across the airwaves and just smack one another right now, we'd just be pancaking each other. But you gotta tip your hat to Tommaso Ciampa. He's on another level right now, and an excellent promo last night. We're going to be looking forward to seeing where they go with this storyline. Of course, there's so many different ways they could go. It's got us on the edge of our seat. We just keep waiting for resolution. No resolution this week, but we get the sense it could come at any time now. Uh, Speaking of any time, the Forgotten Sons, we mentioned them a moment ago. They got out here. This is just a glorified squash match. This is all this was. Trying to remember the names of the guys they even took on. Torrey Kirsch, Vinny Mixon, and Cesar Rise, I believe it is. A little six-man tag team action. This match was over and done with before you could really blink. Riker using his slingshot release powerbomb to pick up the pinfall win. Apparently, Steve Cutler broke his nose at some point in the last couple of weeks, so that's explaining why he's got the mask on here. Basic squash, but an effective one, I think. What was your take on the Forgotten Sons here? Do you like what you see from them, and has the gimmick started to catch on with you?
You know what? I'm enjoying them. You know, they had nice teamwork. They were looking solid. Good old school tactics, tag tactics, pulling the guy into their corner, isolating him. You know what? It had a really throwback brawler team feel to me. Kind of reminded me of like the days of the Road Warriors, of the Fabulous Freebirds, the Von Erichs, that kind of stuff. So it kind of was a good hit for me. I'm curious to see where they go with these guys. I'm liking the group so far. All three of them have some talent, and you know what? I'm kind of on board with the Forgotten Sons right now. So more power to them.
We had a couple of interviews here after this match, and one of them in particular, almost kind of a video package that we want to talk about. First, we'll get into Tony Nese coming down from 205 Live to NXT, making an appearance here. He's got a match that we'll be talking about momentarily against Johnny Gargano. Just kind of a basic promo for him, just kind of setting up the match tonight. But it was very cool to see Tony Nese down at Full Sail, one of the unsung competitors on 205 Live, getting a chance to shine here on NXT this week. We also had an interview, Kathy Kelly talking with Bianca Belair.
No. Ms. Belair, get it right. Was it Bianca
Belair?
It's Belair.
You know what? I'm a part of the journalism field. I'll call her Bianca Belair, and she can kiss my grits. I don't care. Ms. Belair. Okay, good catch. Ms. Belair. Just kind of furthering the Nikki Cross feud again, of course. Belair, just an incredible talent, young talent that's really developing into her own down at NXT. She's come a long way, and she's very entertaining to watch in the ring. But I want to focus on the video package that was done for Shayna Baszler getting ready for her Evolution match against Kairi Sane. This was, to me, the same general compliment I paid to the Cedric Alexander, Buddy Murphy build. I'm going to pay here. Having her training, getting her mind back on the title, taking it seriously, just going through an old-timey MMA camp, basically. You're just getting ready for war with the woman that took the title from her. Shayna Baszler, definitely one of the leading candidates for MVP of the year, the women's division down at NXT. She's had a fantastic 2018. She's just been a complete breath of fresh air in this division. She's prevented the first real credible threat in the women's division since Asuka left. Kairi Sane playing her part to perfection as the fight from underneath babyface. I love this. I love the call out with Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir there. The MMA horsewomen kind of helping out with Baszler, getting her ready, kind of sowing those seeds. That's what NXT does the best. They're just sowing those seeds a little bit, kind of letting you know that Jessamine and Marina are on the periphery. They're not far off now. having a lot of success down on the Buttermilk Tour runs in Florida, some of the smaller house shows. We could be seeing them on TV a lot more here in the weeks to come. But Shayna Baszler, man, I just continue to be so impressed. She just has it down. She just has that little intangible it factor about her where you just make sure that you're paying attention to everything she says. It's almost a Jake Roberts-esque quality about her, just the way she moves around the ring. She's just this perfect, greasy bully heel, but she's got this very deadly danger about her as well from her background. So can't say enough good about it. What was your take? How did you like this video package for Shayna Baszler?
I agree with you totally on this. I loved it. I'm a big Shayna Baszler fan for the pretty well exact same reasons you said. She's something new. She's the greasy heel that the women's division needs. You don't see it anywhere else in the women's division, main roster, NXT, anywhere else. She's caught on to the wrestling game so quickly for as long as she's been in there, and she's nailing it. This was great. I loved like the MMA training camp that she's going through, really focusing on getting her title back. And yeah, she's a credible threat to any of the women out there, main roster, NXT. It doesn't really matter. She's great. I love her. I'm looking forward to that rematch against Kairi Sane. Should be good stuff.
We have two matches to close out the show that we need to talk about here. One of them in particular we're going to gush on here in just a moment. And we've also got a candidate for submission of the week as well coming up. But did want to relay what we have coming up for you next week and the week after on NXT. I love the fact that NXT and 205 Live both give you something to look forward to in the weeks to come. They let you know ahead of time what you're going to be getting and why. There's none of the spontaneity that you see on a Monday or Tuesday night. You know exactly what to look forward to. Next week, Keith Lee going to be on the show. This will be the first time we get to see Keith Lee in action since Grounds for Development's been covering NXT. He's taking on Kona Reeves and the NXT Triple Threat match for the NXT Triple Threat, the North American title Triple Threat match. That is next week. So we have Pete Dunne, Ricochet, and Adam Cole to look forward to next week. If you hear any shaking, that's Greg and I shaking in our seats, getting ready for that one. But oh, by the way, 2 weeks from now, if that wasn't enough, we have the second match between Ms. Belair and Nikki Cross, and big tag team title match. The Undisputed Era's Kyle O'Reilly and Roddy Strong defending the NXT Tag Team Championship against the War Raiders. So 2 big weeks of NXT programming coming up, working our way down towards NXT War Games in November. That's going to be fun over the next 2 weeks. Looking forward to some of those big matches. Of course, it's going to be fun to see Keith Lee in the ring, that triple threat match for the North American title, possible match of the year contender, just on the basis of who's in it. Bianca Belair, Nikki Cross had a great match a couple of weeks ago. Looking forward to seeing them get a little bit more time maybe. And, of course, the Undisputed Era, one of the best tag teams in the world right now, defending against another very superb tag team, Bruisers if they are, the War Raiders. NXT, going to be hard to top. But we did have a couple of matches here to close out the show. We also had another hype package. Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch had a little video package. Now, Greg, you've been on the record multiple times how much you love these video packages. And another winner here, as far as I'm concerned, for Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. And I'm not just saying that because one of them used to be nicknamed Biff. Just really, an exceptional little way to keep them fresh in the memories of the fans. It was unfortunate that their push got derailed by the injury. Unfortunately, of course, they challenged the Undisputed Era for the NXT Tag Titles back in Chicago. And they kind of won over the crowd a little bit, too, as the match went on. It looked like they'll be coming back here, and hopefully they'll get back into the tag title picture scene. It's getting pretty crowded right now with all the tag teams down in NXT, with the Street Profits The Forgotten Sons, Heavy Machinery still there. The War Raiders, of course, about to get their title shot against the Undisputed Era. You got the Mighty still kind of kicking around. So it's an interesting time for Lorcan and Birch to be coming back. What did you think of this video package? And what do you think of Lorcan and Birch as a tag team? Did they really do it for you, or do you need to see more of them before you really get on board the hype train here?
I once again, you know how I feel about the video packages they put out. This was excellent again. I was sorry to see them derailed due to that injury, but that's a pretty serious injury to take. Obviously, you're not going to be wanting to be in a ring with broken orbital bone and cheekbone, so I get why that they were out. You know what? I'm pretty well sold on this tag team as of right now. Initially, you know, they were good rivals. I enjoyed their fights together, and it was kind of a little iffy when you put them together initially. But that match against the Undisputed Era was bonkers. It was so good, and I've pretty much been on board since that match. So, you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing them come back in. Hopefully, once, like you said, hitting towards the title scene again. They deserve to be there, as do a million other teams that NXT seems to have. They've got a really good tag division going on here. So yeah, we'll see where everything goes, and they're definitely a worthy contender for sure.
Am I the only one? I brought this up to someone else, so I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Am I the only one that when we see Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan out there, and of course Oney had the broken orbital bone that put them out of commission for a while. Am I the only one that sees Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian in this tag team a little bit?
Oh, now that you mention it, yeah, there's a bit of a vibe there.
You get exactly what I'm saying. There's a little bit of Christopher Daniels in there. My brother is a huge Christopher Daniels fan, so he'll be happy to catch that reference. But yeah, it's there's a little bit of Christopher Daniels in there somehow. Shout out to the Addiction, I guess.
But if you're gonna try to emulate another great tag team, you could definitely do worse than try to emulate the Addiction. They're a good tag team. Definitely worth checking out if you don't know anything about them.
Well, you do a hell of a lot worse than the Addiction. So, yeah, Christopher Daniels, kudos to him. He's just had an amazing career with Ring of Honor and in the other promotions that he's taken part in. But Oney Lorcan, Danny Burch, looking forward to seeing them get back into the mix. One of the hardest hitting tag teams in NXT for certain. So looking forward to seeing them back. This was all about the two big matches last night. I'm going to call them co-main events essentially because that's the quality that we're talking about. I'm going to skip ahead first. I want to talk about the actual main event, which was Lars Sullivan versus EC3. This one was kind of picking up a feud that had been brewing, and we had talked about this last week. It spun off of the Aleister Black investigation angle. EC3 continues to be a babyface. Did not know that I could have foreseen that coming. I would have thought he might have made a full heel turn by now. Seems like he's the kind of character that would benefit from a heel turn. Lars Sullivan, we also talked about him last week, of course, the monster heel gimmick that he's portraying right now in NXT. I was surprised. This match was a lot better than I thought it would be going in. I can't say that it's the greatest match I've ever seen because it absolutely wasn't. But I really expected nothing from this match, and it delivered fairly well for me. I actually quite enjoyed what Sullivan and EC3 brought to the table. Sullivan, of course, picking up a big win off a diving headbutt, but EC3 showing a lot of fire here, attacking early on and just kind of showing kind of a buzz that kind of followed him into NXT. It's nice to see him with that fire here. What did you think of this main event match before we jump back to the Gargano match? What did you think of Sullivan and EC3 here?
It was kind of the same boat that you were in there. I wasn't expecting much out of this. I like EC3's character or his promo work. I've never been much of a fan of his in-ring work. But you know what? I like the way he rushed the ring to start this. And then when he was all over Sullivan, repeatedly slamming him into the stairs. It looked like Sullivan took some pretty good shots there because those were some crazy welts on his back. And you know what? I kind of like seeing Sullivan work under. It's not something that we really ever see because really, who's ever going to be dominating Lars Sullivan? So it was kind of nice to see, and I was surprised. You're right. It was a much better match than I was expected to see when that was first announced. Going to that dive-in headbutt win, I am not a fan of the dive-in headbutt. I don't care who does it. The history that we've seen, the people that have been irreparably damaged. I wish that spot would just go away from wrestling. I don't like it. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't care who does it. Just please get rid of it.
I co-sign 100%. I'm going to co-sign on that. And I've seen some beautiful swan dive headbutts in my time. Dynamite Kid had a beautiful one. Chris Benoit had a really nice one as well. But that move just needs to go. There's just such a negative connotation surrounding it. It's just needless to see that move. It doesn't serve any real purpose. Just because the headbutt's been around for eons doesn't mean that we have to keep seeing them used. It's just better off, everyone, if we just found a different move. I will say, having said that, it was pretty impressive to see Lars get up there on the ropes like that. Someone his size. He's not as big as you would think he is. I think NXT's roster per capita is a little bit smaller size and stature-wise than the main roster. So I don't know that he's going to look as imposing when he gets to the main roster. But Lars Sullivan's still a big guy. And so to see him get up there and do some aerial maneuvers like he does, it's a testament to his agility and athleticism, I think. But you kind of touched on the same principle. It was a much better match than we thought it was going in. And we're about to talk about the other big match from this show, really the match of the week, I think. I'm pretty safe in saying it's the match of the week that we're going to be talking about here with Tony Nese and Johnny Gargano momentarily. It just makes you wonder for someone like a Lars Sullivan or an EC3 where the road takes them from here. It seems like the NXT title picture is pretty well full up for the foreseeable future. So we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds for Sullivan and EC3. There's also no guarantee that this feud is over. It was a pretty definitive win for Lars Sullivan, but that doesn't mean that EC3 is done with him by a long shot. But we needed to talk about this match last. Johnny Gargano and Tony Nese. You and I both had the same basic conclusion once we got done watching this match. Tony Nese just put in just a hell of a performance. Very much worthy of being on the Power 5 ranking, which we'll talk about here momentarily as well. But Tony Nese comes down to Full Sail, wrestling Johnny Gargano, and makes the absolute most of it. Just give us your thoughts, Greg, on this match. I know you have a lot that you could say about it. Tony Nese and Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano picking up the win here over Tony Nese with the Gargano escape. Submission of the week for certain here. And
that is definitely Hold's submission of the week here. But yeah, this match easily, and there was no real contender to it. This was definitely the match of the week. The crowd was giving it well-deserved, awesome chants. It had everything. There was aerial moves, there was counters, there was kickouts, there was false finishes. This was a very, very, very solid match. And yeah, if they ever want to run this back, I'll be there front and center to watch this again. These guys were excellent. Tony Nese showed that he is the premier athlete. Johnny Wrestling lived up to his nickname there. I can't say enough good things about this match. It was phenomenal. Yeah, I don't even know where to go with this. You had your outside dives. You had Tony Nese coming in to stop a suicide dive. I thought that was a unique spot. You don't generally see that very often. So yeah, a great match. Check this one out if you haven't had a chance to yet. You're not going to be disappointed for sure.
Do you think that this represents Tony Nese's kind of pinnacle? Do you think this is his high watermark in the company so far? Because he had a really good showing in the Cruiserweight Classic, but I kind of get the feeling that, for all due respect to 205 Live and for all intents and purposes of what he has done on the roster so far, this almost felt like kind of a revelation where we knew Tony Nese was athletic, we knew he was talented. This is the first time since the Cruiserweight Classic where I felt like I could sit up and say, this guy is not just talented, he's damn good. Do you feel kind of the same way, or do you think this is more of the Tony Nese that we've been seeing on 205 Live, and he just gets a different venue to showcase his talents this week, you think?
No, I kind of agree with you. This felt like more from Tony Nese than we really see on 205 Live, where he's been good on 205 Live, but he's kind of been taking a backseat to Buddy Murphy there for obvious reasons. Buddy Murphy's been killing it, but yeah, no, Tony Nese was a revelation in my eyes today. I mean, I always knew he was good. Like you said, he had a great match there at the Cruiserweight Classic, and this just solidified in my view that he is a solid wrestler, and he's got a potential that maybe we didn't realize was there just watching him on 205 Live. So this was a great match. He did excellent in this match, and he very, very much impressed me.
It was a great match. It was a great performance for Tony Nese, and it was a good episode of NXT overall. I enjoyed it. I thought that it was another winner in a series of them, and that says a lot considering the fact that we're setting up for what's going to be just an absolute dynamite show next week with the NXT triple threat match, the North American title triple threat match for NXT, and we've also got Leo Rush's Open Challenge next week. And we've got Hideo Itami and Mustafa Ali on the horizon as well. Of course, next week we'll have full coverage of the Cruiserweight title match from Melbourne, Australia from Super Showdown. We'll recap that. We'll also be able to recap the triple threat match for the North American title that we've just been talking about. And full coverage of next week's episodes of 205 Live and NXT. You gave 205 Live an A this week. NXT topping that, stay in the course, or did 205 win the night last night for you?
You know what? I think I'm going to give them an equal grade. They were both A shows for me. Both solid shows. Both had one really, really good match, and everything else was a solid match. A great night of wrestling once again.
Absolutely, it was a great night of wrestling, and we just cannot stress enough how fun Wednesday nights are right now with everything going on. Be sure to check out the shows if you don't. I mean, it's one thing to hear us talk about them and recap it for you. It's another thing to get to experience it live. And if you haven't gotten a chance to see Adam Cole or Ricochet or Pete Dunne lately, you definitely want to get the network before next week. We're going to be talking here momentarily about the network. Some news out there that could be affecting both NXT and 205 Live. But first, I want to turn the show back over to our host with the most, Greg the Hold, because we've got some Power 5 rankings to get through today. And I tell you what, number one on their list has not been number one before since we've been doing this show, but he is way more deserving. Just a fun list overall this week. So it's time now for our Power 5. And with all due respect, there's only one man that can bring it to you with the reverence that it deserves, and that is Greg the Hold. Greg, Power 5 time, my friend. You take it away with number 5.
Number 5, she has made an appearance on the Power 5 previously. Number 5's position goes to Lacey Evans. She had solid, good healing in her match against Candice LeRae. She won the match with the women's right. After Candice kind of went a little crazy due to some excellent healing by Miss Evans. Like we kind of mentioned in our review, a little worried about where they may end up going with this character. But as of right now, I think it's just solid healing. I hope it stays that way. What are your thoughts on her, Biff?
I've gone on record and said that Shayna Baszler is the MVP of the women's division in NXT in 2018. If I could award co-MVP honors, I would be going with Lacey Evans. I am just absolutely a huge fan. I think that she's picked up the intangibles so quickly from where she started. I've seen the visual improvement week to week. Of course, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I saw her before TakeOver in New Orleans. She was wrestling for one of the taped editions of NXT that followed after the TakeOver special was aired. She looked good there. She looks even better now. Really good match this week. She did a really good job. Any woman that trash talks like she can gets an A+ from me for character work. Lacey Evans, a very deserving number 5. And of course, her opponent coming in at number 4, equally as deserving. She had another fine match in a series of them since she's been working NXT as well. Number 4, Candice LeRae. Greg, your thoughts on Candice? This match really was really good this week.
Yeah, Candice was really good in this match. She's taking the beating from the larger opponent, but looking good while doing it and getting a lot of offense of her own in. I'm liking the story arc that's going on with her tied right into the whole Gargano Ciampa mix. She's been a integral part into it. I like how she's showing the fire to stick up for her husband, and she put a great effort in against Lacey Evans. Losing effort though it may have been, she looked really good in this match, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from Mrs. Wrestling. And that leads into our number 3 spot, which goes to Mr. Wrestling, her husband, Johnny Gargano, who took on Tony Nese this week in what was the match of the week. Great match. He looked great in it. He won with his Gargano escape, winning himself the submission of the week from Greg the Hold. What are your thoughts on Johnny Wrestling, Biff?
Johnny Gargano has definitely been one of the most interesting characters in the entire WWE system this year and even last year too. I am a huge fan of Johnny Gargano. As a matter of fact, when we were buying our swag for New Orleans, I made it a point. Everybody that was going with us to TakeOver and WrestleMania, they got a shirt to wear down there just so that we could be complete wrestling homers. And Johnny Gargano's shirt was the first one that I bought, even supplanted AJ Styles. That shows you how big a fan I am of his. I've gone on record, the character arc with his triumph in New Orleans and then his betrayal of his principles over the summer in Chicago and Brooklyn, leading to kind of the fall of Johnny Gargano. And now we see Johnny starting to try and work his way back up. Of course, Full Sail turned on him a couple of weeks ago, but here a much more positive reaction, I thought. Just in terms of the match quality itself last night, Tony Nese and Johnny Gargano just had a whale of a match. Johnny Gargano, Johnny Wrestling, of course, always brings the goods. One of the best pure baby faces you're ever going to see in wrestling. A very worthy number 3. But, you know, something, we talk about worthiness, and we've been gushing over our number 2 guy really for several weeks now, but especially the last 2. He has just really found a new gear on 205 Live. He's tapping into just this awesome Rudo heel act that would be right at home in a CMLL or another Lucha promotion. Our number 2 guy, why don't you go ahead and do the honors, Greg?
Our number 2 position for the Power 5 this week goes to none other than TJP, who has been just lighting it up with his anti-lucha agenda the last couple of weeks. I can't say enough about this guy. He's taken this story and he's run with it, and I'm loving it. Taking the masks, showing the absolute disdain for the lucha libre history, a rich wrestling history that deserves respect, and he's getting the heel heat by showing absolute disrespect to that legacy. He's killing it. He's doing a fabulous job. I can't say enough good things about TJP right now. So I'm glad to see that he's kind of found his footing and his niche at 205 Live, and he's he's rocketing back up the card. He's doing a great job doing it. So good on you, TJP. And our number one spot this week goes to a man that I don't believe has even shown his face on the Power 5 yet since our start. But he's a deserving number one this week. He took on our number 3 position in the match of the week. The premier athlete, Mr. Abs himself, Tony Nese. Outstanding performance by Tony this week. What do you got to say about Tony Nese, Biff?
When you sit there and you look at Tony Nese, I think the one thing that might stand out more than anything else, Tony Nese is the kind of athlete, the kind of wrestler that's almost easy to overlook. I think, and it's not any disrespect to Tony because he has a great physique. I mean, he has abs on top of abs. Only Finn Balor's abs could even give his a run for their money. So it's not a matter of his physique, but it's just he hasn't really had a chance to really showcase how good he can be since the Cruiserweight Classic. This was his big moment to really show people, hey, I'm an excellent wrestler in my own right, and damned if he didn't just put on a great match with Johnny Gargano. We take pride in honoring the people that otherwise wouldn't get the recognition that they deserve with this Power 5 rankings. And that's as much a part of what goes into the decision-making as anything. This week, not only are we giving recognition to someone that deserves it for their work in the ring, but we're also giving recognition to someone who deserves it just from their overall body of work. Tony Nese is so much better than his reputation would belay. I hope that this is the start of a lot more good things coming for him. I think he deserves a chance to have the spotlight a little bit, showcase more of his talent, because in the limited amount we saw here at Full Sail, he knocked it out of the park. And it just makes you wonder what he could do if they gave him the ball to run with on 205 Live. Maybe even a run in NXT. You never know what they may have set up. I hope we see more of him in Full Sail. It was a great fit. Absolute stunning number one for us this week, but absolutely deserving. Tony Nese, congratulations to you, sir. You are the world's premier athlete, and you're also this week's number one on the Power 5 ranking.
Yes, and that wraps up our Power 5 for the week. We'll talk some little news here. It's come out this week that there's rumors of the network going to a possibly tiered system, and what that effect on NXT and 205 Live might be. You want to touch on this a little bit, Biff? I think you may know a little bit more about it than I do. Up here in Canada, we kind of work on a different system than the network works in a lot of other places. It comes as a channel on your cable subscription, and then you have access to the streaming service. So I'm not sure that the tiered system would affect us the same way or not, but tell us what you know and what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, it is important to note this is probably more important for listeners in the United States right now, because the network does have such a difference of distribution model depending on where you go. Like in Canada, I think it's different in the UK as well. So this is probably more important for American listeners right now. Definitely something that everyone should kind of keep in the back of their mind, though. There have been rumors for a while now that the network would be undergoing a change. There's been rumors for over a year now, really, that the WWE was looking to increase the content on the network. And they've done that just by virtue of some of their new shows, their original programming. I think at last count, they have like 5 times the amount of content that they did at launch. And that number could be dramatically underselling it. That's just from memory there. The bottom line is they have an enormous library of content now on the network, all the pay-per-views, all the original programming, and they're thinking of changing things up even more. The rumors, as they are coming out, and these rumors seem to be picking up speed a little bit here. We've had multiple reports from different sources, so it kind of lends credence to the fact this is something that is being considered seriously on some level. The idea would be to create a tiered package whereby people could get the network itself, the live stream, and X amount of hours of streaming content for free. You would basically get the WWE Network, the live stream. You would get all the programming that comes on that, except for the pay-per-views and NXT and a rumored Cruiserweight Classic series. Now, this was an interesting little tidbit in the latest rumor batch on this subject. Apparently, there is the possibility that a new Cruiserweight themed tournament show could be created. Maybe they're just rebranding 205 Live, or maybe this is going to be working in conjunction with 205 Live. We don't know for sure yet. But there have been rumors of a Cruiserweight Classic series bandied about as part of these rumors. So we'll keep you on top of that, see if anything develops from that rumor. The basic gist of it, though, for an increased price, around $14 is the rumor, you would be able to get all of the pay-per-views and NXT streaming as you normally would. They've also considered adding independent companies like Progress or Evolve or Rev Pro from England, talking about getting some outside content onto the network. One source even mentioned Ring of Honor and TNA / Impact Wrestling. Now, we know a couple of weeks ago there was a meeting in New York between Impact Wrestling and WWE officials. There was never any report on what that was about. But you know something? Given the landscape of professional wrestling right now, it would not shock me if Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor cut some sort of deal to put some content on the network. I definitely think Evolve and Progress will find their way on the network sooner rather than later. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about an incredible block of wrestling. Imagine getting NXT UK and Progress back to back. Whew. That would be a dandy. But that's basically what we know right now. They're talking about adding new content and changing up the pricing plans. So if you do subscribe to the network, you definitely want to be paying attention over the next couple of weeks. This looks like something that could gain more traction as we get closer to the end of the year. The current rumors would suggest we may be looking at a change to the network in January of 2019. That seems to be the earliest possible changeover date if they do, in fact, go to a new pricing plan. Everything is still very much speculative. You could wake up January 1st, your network be just like it was on December 31st. So don't get too worried about any major changes coming, but there does seem to be some rumors in the pipeline, and it could affect 205 Live. If this rumored Cruiserweight series is in fact 205 Live or something new, we'll have to wait and see. If it's a second tournament, that would be extraordinarily welcome news considering how great the first tournament was. And as far as NXT goes, so they're going to hide NXT behind a new paywall and make you charge a little more to get it. Would not shock me if that was the case, considering how well NXT draws. So we'll just have to wait and see. But these changes that are coming to the network will definitely have an impact on the network shows that we cover here. So be sure to keep in tune with us here on Grounds for Development. We'll keep you up to date on every rumor, every report, every piece of news that could affect these two shows. We'll keep you covered. We'll keep you up to date. You won't miss a thing. So be sure to keep it tuned in. That is what we know so far. If we get anything more in the weeks to come, we'll be sure to report it. But as far as this show goes, I think we have two particular matches we want people to check out this weekend before we wrap it up. And I really love these two matches. You told me your match before we went on the air, and it made me actually change mine. So why don't we go ahead and dive right into that? Two matches to watch this weekend. Your match in particular is just an absolute stellar gem. Why don't you tell the listeners about your match for them to watch this weekend?
Well, to our Canadian listeners out there, this is your Thanksgiving weekend treat. Definitely check this out. We're going back to NXT on the date of August 21st, 2013. We're going back to a time when Cesaro, had a first name of Antonio. So we're going back to the Antonio Cesaro versus Sami Zayn best 2 of 3 falls match. If you have not seen this match, you are in for a treat. This match was one of the first matches I ever saw from NXT, and it has a special place in my heart because it turned me on to NXT. And I can't say enough good things about this match. Cesaro and Zayn are both amazing wrestlers, and they put on a clinic in this match. It is a treat. Consider that your Canadian Thanksgiving present for this weekend. What is your pick for the weekend, Biff?
I was so enthused about your match selection that I actually changed it up. I was originally going with a Jack Gallagher match from the early run of 205 Live, but I changed it up. And I'm going to have to double dip in NXT again this week because your match made me remember another match from 2013 NXT that just absolutely fantastic. And this match needs just a smidge of backstory. If you go on YouTube, before you watch this match, search a promo that William Regal cuts on Cesaro in lieu of their match. It takes place, if I'm not mistaken, the December 25th episode of NXT from 2013. So we have to go back a little ways also for this one. Cesaro was just in the Miracle Zone working NXT during this period. He just had some incredible matches. This one is all about the story. You know, wrestling is at its best when it's telling a story in the ring. And William Regal and Cesaro going at it. Of course, William Regal, the old chess master in the ring, that British style, joint manipulation, hooking them. Just an absolute great technical wrestler. One of the best there's ever been for my money. And I know, Greg, you some William Regal just as much as I do. Cesaro, what needs to be said more about Cesaro? He's just one of the best wrestlers in the world, pound for pound. The story of this match, William Regal knows he can't beat Cesaro. He knows Cesaro on his worst day will be far superior to William Regal on his best day. But William Regal knows that as the old dog that he is, he's got a few tricks left up his sleeve. He's going to come at Cesaro with everything he has left. It's basically a retelling of Rocky Balboa. If you ever watched the sixth Rocky movie, William Regal, punching above his class, the old wrestler going against the young gun in Cesaro. This match is just as good as the promo work. It's one of the best promos I've ever heard from William Regal. Greg, I sent you the link on Twitter to let you enjoy this as everyone else does. This is my match for you to watch this weekend. And a big happy Thanksgiving to all our friends up in Canada. Of course, your Thanksgiving's coming up this weekend. Americans have to wait a little bit longer for their Thanksgiving. I'm envious of you. I might have to celebrate with you. But this is Cesaro versus William Regal from the December 25th episode in 2013 of NXT. So be sure to check out both Cesaro versus Sami Zayn and Cesaro versus William Regal. That is our matches for your weekend viewing pleasure. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Greg to go ahead and wrap things up. Been another great episode, man. We're coming up on a month anniversary, a month of Grounds for Development. I can't believe you haven't killed me yet.
Oh, I have no desire to kill you, Biff. You're a good friend, and I'm glad that this show has come together. We're having a great time doing this. I couldn't ask for a better co-host out there. I hope you guys are all enjoying this, and give us some comments on the YouTube page. Hit us up on the Twitter. We're always checking that stuff out. So if you have any comments for us, we're more than welcome to read them, respond to you, have some conversation. Anytime you want to get a hold of me, you can catch me on Twitter at GWKlein, KLEIN 75. You can catch me on Cage Side Seats in the daily for the most part under the name The Saskatchewan Spinning Nerve Hold. And you can also hit us up on the Grounds for Development Twitter, Grounds for Dev1. We check that quite frequently and are always looking for any interaction from our fans. Where can they catch you, Biff?
You can catch me at Cage Side Seats, generally during the daily and nightly threads as Biff Kensington. You can also catch us on Twitter at Real Deal Biff. That's DILL like the pickle, for reasons that I would rather leave unexplained at the moment. You can catch it on Twitter, of course. The sister show on Monday evenings, Connoisseurs of Wrestling, Monday nights on YouTube. You can find me there as well. And I'll be guesting tomorrow on Two Guys One Sport with Mr. Doc Shinju and some other friends. I think Don Sal will be making an appearance as well on the show. Well, I guess it's later tonight at this point. I'll be going to bed, so it's going to be tomorrow for me, but later tonight, Thursday. Yeah, I'm all confused and backwards. I never got over the vapors of that Tony Nese Johnny Gargano match. So just put up with me. Greg, thanks for putting up with me as well over the last couple of weeks. It's been a fantastic first month of Grounds for Development, and looking forward to a lot of more months of this show because a lot of more months is great grammar. I made a fool of myself. I'm tired. My friend, I turn the keys over to you. Take us home.
Well, you need to go get yourself some beauty rest there, Biff. And we're going to wrap her up. This has been the 4th episode of Grounds for Development. We thank you for your continued support and listening. And we will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Take care, everybody.